If we can start with the invocation by Pastor Barbara St. John from Bethel United Methodist Church. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm down there where Barbara Henley's place is. Let us pray. Oh, gracious God, thank you for this beautiful day that you have given us. Thank you for the beautiful sunshine and the warm temperatures. Thank you for life itself. Thank you for all that you are. Oh Lord, I pray this day that you will be with all concerned, the councils, and with all in the audience, that they would have open hearts and open minds to what they would have to hear and to go about the business. I pray, O Lord, that you would grant them wisdom and knowledge and guide them to be right for all people and fair to all people concerned. Thank you, O Lord, for these leaders of our city. Guide them to do thy will. Through your Son, through your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the roll call.
Yes, Your Honor, all present.
Okay, all are present.
All present. Yes.
Okay, could I ask for a motion certification of the closed session?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you have certified the closed session to be in accordance with the motion to recess.
All righty, and, okay, and at this point, I would like to make a proclamation. Could I have the members, founding members of the Virginia Beach Clean Community Commission come forward? It is an honor to have you here, to recognize you for your great service over the years in founding an organization that has done much for this community. A grateful council and community salute you. Whereas the Virginia Beach Clean Community Commission is a city council appointed group formed in 1980 to undertake the task of promoting litter prevention, recycling, beautification, and general environmental awareness through educational projects designed to reach all segments of our community. And whereas, having been active with the VBCC from its inception, Daniel Baxter, Chair, Larry Banks, Vice Chair, and Nancy Diggs, Treasurer, were officially appointed to their positions with the VBCCC by council to serve on April 15th of 2010. Whereas these founding members and commissioners were instrumental in the development of the VBCCC and worked with the city to form the following programs. 1, the Helping Hands program, which coordinates resources and volunteers with the goal of providing assistance to senior citizens and physically challenged residents who are financially unable to do it themselves. The Adopt-A program, which has encouraged individual responsibility for our environment through scheduled litter pickups. The Earth Day celebration, presented in partnership with the Virginia Beach Parks and Rec, Waste Management, and the VBCCC, a day that is intended to inspire awareness and appreciation for the Earth's natural resources. And the Clean the Bay Day picnic, which follows the annual Clean the Bay Day cleanup event and allows the VBCCC to say thanks to the volunteers for their commitment to keeping our waterways clean. Therefore, I, Robert M. Dyer, Mayor of Virginia Beach, do hereby proclaim March 19th, 2019, Virginia Beach Clean Community Commission Founders Day. Thank you very much. And at this point, I'm going to come down and present you so much. Thank you so much. And please turn around. We got our city manager as photographer of the day.
Congratulations.
And thank you. But Dan, if one of you would like to make some remarks, that would be more than appreciated.
Well, thank you for this honor, Mr. Mayor and City Council. It's been a labor of love over these years. I've been involved with the commission since 1992, so that takes me back quite a long way. But thank you all for your support and your continuing support for the programs that we started and we continue to enjoy as a city. It's been a labor of love.
Well, thank you. And Dan, I know you and Ruby will be continuing your service to the city, and we continue to honor all of you and all the volunteers that help make this city so great. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, we have some public hearings. Oh, the minutes, my apologies. Do I have a motion on the minutes for the informal and formal sessions of March 5th, 2019?
So
Do I-
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, the vote is open.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you've approved the minutes as submitted.
Thank you very much. Okey dokey. Public hearings?
I don't have any speakers signed up. Do you need to call them?
Okay, are there any speakers at all in the public hearings?
I do not have any speakers.
Okay, the first one is the lease of property, open air markets, 700 block of 18th Street and Vibe Park to the old Farmers Market, 700 block of the 18th Street of the Vibe Park to the old Farmers Market, TA Old Beach Arch and Echo Market.
No speakers,
No
sir.
speakers? Lease of public city property, Farmers Market, Building 6, Space 1 to Lisa Tinker Treasures. B, Building 8, Spaces 23 and 24 to Moosewood Creek Primitives.
No speakers.
No speakers. Okay, open air franchise agreements. A, Baja Tobacco Incorporated. B, Chicks Sea Grill LLC. C, Fish and Bones Incorporated. D, Dandria LLC. E, Jumpin' Shrimp Incorporated. F, Carpathos Incorporated. G, 9th Street Grill. H, Scrambled Inc. I, Dunes Investment Associates LLC. J, Gold Key PHR Food Services. K, Gold Key PHR First LLC Tortuga Cafe. L, Fogg Seafood Company, TA Watermans.
No speakers.
Any speakers?
No
John.
speakers.
Mr. Moss.
I'd just like to make amendment to make sure that since the public notice read slightly different that we made in the paper, that the mayor's public remarks cross-references to the public notice, which has 1 through 12, and it reads slightly different. But it didn't go by letters, it went by numbers in the public notice in the paper.
Oh.
Just in case there's a legal issue, there's
Okay.
one and the same.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moss. Okay, no speakers?
No speakers, sir.
Okay. At this point, I asked Vice Mayor to do the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, first, I'd like to move that we add a resolution to the agenda, a resolution to direct the city attorney to file a petition for a writ of special election, and I'll read it, it's very brief. Whereas by court order, the seat for the Virginia Beach District is vacant, whereas the current term of office for the Beach District seat runs until December 31st, 2022, Whereas Code of Virginia, Section 24.2-226 requires a local elected body to petition its circuit court for a writ of special election to fill the remaining portion of the term of office for a member of the elected body when that member's term of office ends in a year other than the year for which a general election to fill the vacancy occurs. And whereas the next general election available to fill the office of council member for the Beach District is November 5th, 2019, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Virginia Beach, Virginia, that the City Council directs the City Attorney to file a petition for a writ of special election in the Circuit Court for the purpose of filling the vacancy in the office of council member Beach District for a term ending December 31st, 2022, and request such special election to be held November 5th, 2019. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, the vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the motion to add the item to the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, under the consent agenda, I move for approval of the following items. Under ordinances and resolutions, item J1, ordinance to grant 2 franchise agreements to open-air markets on public property to the Old Beach Farmers Market and Old Beach Art and Eco Market in the 700 block of 18th Street and the Vibe Park. J2, ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a lease of city-owned property at Virginia Beach Farmers Market. A, Building 6, Space 1 to Lisa Preuss, doing business as Lisa's Tinker Treasures. 2B, Building 8, Spaces 23 and 24 to Angela C. Surgeon, doing business as Moosewood Creek Primitives. Item J3, ordinance to grant 12 franchise agreements regarding open-air cafes in the resort area. Item 3A, Baja Taco Incorporated, trading as Baja Cantina Cafe, Atlantic Avenue Side Street Cafe at 206 23rd Street. B, Chick's Sea Grill LLC, trading as Chick's Cafe, regarding Connector Park Cafe at 701 Atlantic Avenue. Fish and Bones, Inc., trading as Fish Bones Cafe, regarding Boardwalk Cafe at 1211 Atlantic Avenue. D, Dandria LLC, trading as Il Giardino Cafe, regarding Atlantic Avenue Side Street Cafe at 910 Atlantic Avenue. E, Jumpin' Shrimp Incorporated, trading as Jumpin' Shrimp Cafe, regarding Connector Park Cafe at 1211 Atlantic Avenue. F, Carpathos, Inc., trading as King of the Sea Cafe, regarding Atlantic Avenue Side Street Cafe at 2612 Atlantic Avenue. G, 9th Street Grill Incorporated, trading as Manhattan, regarding Atlantic Avenue Sidewalk Cafe at 812 Atlantic Avenue. H, Scrambled, Inc., trading as Scrambled, regarding Atlantic Avenue Sidewalk Cafe at 910 Atlantic Avenue. I, Dunes Investment Associates, LLC, trading as the Beach Club, regarding Boardwalk Cafe at 901 Atlantic Avenue. J, Gold Key PHR Food Services, LLC, trading as Tortugas Cafe and Tiki Bar, regarding Boardwalk Cafe at 3400 Atlantic Avenue. K, Gold Key PHR Food Services, LLC, trading as Tortugas Cafe and Tiki Bar, regarding Connector Park Cafe at 3400 Atlantic Avenue. L, Fogg Seafood Company, trading as Waterman's, regarding Connector Park Cafe at 415 Atlantic Avenue. Do we have a speaker on J4 or not? Amanda?
No, there's no speakers.
Okay. Ordinance to declare approximately 6.4 acres of city property located at the intersection of Princess Anne Road, Community College Place in excess of the city's needs, and authorize city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with option for the sale of the property to Princess Anne Hotel LLC regarding development of hotel and restaurant, and that's consent for approval with Mr. Moss voting nay. Item 5, ordinance to amend the Economic Development Investment Program policy and procedure regarding process for making and paying awards and enhanced reporting requirements with Mr. Moss voting nay. Item 7, ordinance to appropriate $650,000 in local vehicle license revenue to Department of Finance fiscal year 2018-19 operating budget regarding collection costs of local vehicle registration fees. Item 8, ordinance just to accept and appropriate A, $1,494,816 from the Virginia Department of Transportation regarding traffic signal rehabilitation and maintenance of roadways. B, $3,000 from Geico to the Police Department FY 18-19 operating budget regarding every 15 minutes program. C, $183,569 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to Fire Department FY 18-19 operating budget regarding purchase and maintenance of communications equipment for Virginia Task Force 2 Urban Search and Rescue Team. 8D, $98,620 from Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services to Human Services FY 18-19 operating budget regarding creation of 2 new positions to provide enhanced behavioral health services.
Okay, I now open a public hearing on planning.
Item K2, Janet T. Respass and Teresa Tatum for a variance to Section 4.4B of the subdivision regulations regarding lot width at 1965 Gumbridge Road and an adjacent vacant parcel, District 7, Princess Anne, noting that Ms. Abbott is abstaining on that item. Item 5, Traditional Concepts LLC and Victory Baptist Church of Virginia Beach Incorporated for a conditional change of zoning from R15 residential to conditional R10 residential regarding 13 single-family dwellings and a modification of conditions regarding religious use at 4125 Indian River Road, District 7, Princess Anne. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wood, noting the nay votes of Mr. Moss and Ms. Abbott's abstention.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like the
John.
opportunity to explain my no vote, if I could, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. This is in regards to the 6.4 acres of city property adjacent to Tidewater Community College where there's a hotel. Often in this council, we talk about the biggest impediment to affordable housing is the lack of affordable land. So it's never easy to make trades in the public sector because we're now competing land that could have been used for affordable housing. We're consciously choosing to do a hotel instead. In the private sector, free of government interference, and we are interfering in this trade because we are subsidizing this transaction, you don't have that interference, so everything is on a price basis, willing buyer, willing seller. But tonight's vote is really about the highest and best use of land that you own, of which we are just a trustee. A critical problem that we have is affordable housing. And I didn't come to this till about 3 weeks ago thinking about this property, and I wish I would have thought about it sooner. So it reflects a little bit my own sensitivity about the issue of affordable housing. But I do know the price of land is the biggest impediment to constructing new affordable housing. Now, the average weekly wage in the private sector of Virginia Beach is less than $800 a week for people who live and work, not who live here, but who work here, independent of where they live. In the services section and retail, the average weekly wage is $714 a week. So when you go and look at where this property is positioned relative to the hospital, relative to the retail that's down at Lynn Haven and Princess Anne Road, there is a lot of those kind of average weekly jobs, which we talk about that we can't provide housing for. I don't argue the merits of the hotel. I don't argue the merits that people go to Greenbrier. But we can't sit here constantly and talk about the challenge of affordable housing, and then an opportunity that we have to provide affordable housing, we choose a hotel. I realize, Mr. Mayor, this thing has moved a long way, and along with people making a lot of good faith agreements, and I know the agreement's going to go through, and I'm not criticizing my peers for voting yes, but I think it is important that a no vote highlights how important, when vacant land is available that we have, that one of the first considerations maybe should be affordable housing rather than economic development, especially when it's situated where transit's available and the jobs are close by. And I think probably all of us probably overlooked that, so I don't criticize my peers for the vote today, but I just felt I just couldn't vote for it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moss.
Now, if I could go to the other one, which is the economic development policy. I think all the improvements are good, but I remember a time when this council approved all those grants. And I'm voting no because I believe we should bring that decision-making back to this body where it once resided. And I think the decisions would be better, and we wouldn't be having some of the integrity and conflict of interest issues that we had in the past. This is public money being given to private parties, and I don't believe unelected people should be making those choices.
Okay, Jess.
I just wanted to give an explanation for my abstention on K2. I don't have interest in the applicant, but one of the contractors that they've used, I have a relationship with, and I felt it would be inappropriate to vote on that matter, so I chose to abstain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this point, we're going to move on to the agenda, and I'd like to read a statement, please. I want to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items and items where a public hearing is required by state law. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Also, when speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will then ask if there are any other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand. Those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be give their name, address, and telephone number to the clerk to record. Okay, the first item is we're going to talk about is J6, which is a resolution to support the city's application for the 2019 Virginia Dam Safety Flood Prevention and Protection Assisted Fund Grant from the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation. Do we have a speaker?
Virginia Wasserberg.
Welcome, Virginia.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to, I knew this was on consent agenda, and I appreciate that, but I wanted to pull it because I listened to you guys today and your concerns that people don't think that you're doing something for us when it comes to flooding. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to bring this to light, really, and just talk about it. I appreciate the city staff for helping me with this, and Ms. Barnes for helping me too. This item actually addresses, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hanson, CIP 7027, which is hydraulic and hydraulic model development of Elizabeth City. I'm from Elizabeth City, Elizabeth River watersheds 17 through 22. Ms. Kim Tempesco led me to the information today that the project is $315,000, and the city portion would be half of that, which would be $157,500. So the grant is, my understanding, is seeking for $157,500. Now, in the spreadsheet that Mr. Johnson gave you today, and thank you to Ms. Barnes for providing that to me, on line 17 of that spreadsheet, it is the CIP 7027. That's a $14.8 million total project cost. And I just wanted to bring this to light in saying that, I guess in lieu of how much money we have to spend and how much money you have to decide that we're going to spend on flooding and sea level rise, this shows that you as a body are doing the hard work in finding grant funding to cover these projects. And I just wanted to applaud you for that, applaud our city staff for doing that. And because we got to go about this, as you all have said and agreed, in as many ways as possible, whether that is through what you decide through raising taxes and fees or in finding state and federal grant funding. And this is a way to get some grant funding for a project that's needed. And I would appreciate you all just showing the public how much you support doing the hard work in finding that money for flooding any way you can. Thank you.
And Virginia, thank you for all your efforts with Stop Flooding Now and your advocacy for this topic. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I make a motion to approve?
Okay.
And I would just say the Green Ribbon Committee has been cognizant of this grant for a good while and has worked for applications for this.
Okay, great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? The vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the resolution.
Okay, next item, a resolution to direct the city attorney to file a petition for a writ of a special election.
I'm sorry, so there was some miscommunication. There are no speakers on that.
There are no speakers
No.
on that?
Okay. Move approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this? Vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you approve the resolution.
Okay, we're going to move on to planning now. Okay, item K1, Clear Creek Holdings LLC for conditional change of zoning from R10 residential to, and I1 light industrial to conditional I1 light industrial at a vacant parcel off South Bird Neck Road, approximately 650 feet from Carissa Court. Ray, construction 3 buildings for industrial office warehouse units, District 6.
First speaker is Eddie Burdon.
Welcome, Eddie.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wood, honorable council members. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach attorney representing the applicant. With me this evening is Mr. Larry Kurtz. Mr. Kurtz is the principal and only member of the LLC. His family first purchased this property, has owned this property since 1964. It was undeveloped when they purchased it, and they've held it for 55 years undeveloped. The property is in the highest noise zone and also in APZ2, highest noise zone around NAS Oceana. The property was zoned, when they purchased it in 1964, R10 residential. In 1981, the city rezoned as a part of a comprehensive plan adoption all but 22% of it. It's 4.38 acres, and 22% of it remained on the frontage, remained R10. The balance, 87.66% of the property was zoned unconditional I1 light industrial district. This coincided with the Department of the Navy being in the process of acquiring, and they did acquire, all of the residential development rights on the property. So the property, even though it has a small amount of R10 zoning on the frontage on Bird Neck Road, it's split zoning, and it's unconditional I1 with the exception of the frontage, which is R10 but cannot be developed residentially. And with all of our subsequent guidance with the Department of the Navy, we would certainly not want to see it developed residentially. The application is to rezone that portion of the property that is R10 to conditional I1, along with the part that is unconditional I1. So the entirety of the property will no longer be unconditional I1. It'll all be conditional I1, subject to the proffers that are before you. The, excuse me, the purpose is to develop a industrial, light industrial business park, SeaTac business park for small businesses. And this is not a self-storage facility, never intended to be, couldn't be. It is for small business. And the application, proffered plan, extensive landscaping, drainage, next to the city's animal shelter and the GTS facility that's under construction on the old golf course property. And the folks that are developing that, met with them. They're in support of the application. We made the error, and it's my fault, and I took blame for it, for not having gone to the Civic League. We're on the west side of Bird Neck Road, and CTAG is a suburban focus area, suburban focus to protect the neighborhood, but we're not adjacent to any housing whatsoever. We have met with the Civic League, had a great meeting past Tuesday night, and one of the outcomes of that were some additional proffers, which have been submitted to the city but could not have been submitted within 10 days, that preclude the property from being used for any type of auto repair garage, automobile service station, or a self-storage facility. So those are now restricted on the entire piece of property. The proposed use is a by right use on the property that's owned I1. But, if the front portion wasn't zoned R10, the whole thing could have been developed this way and no one would have ever seen it. Had the opportunity to as staff has done, work on the architecture, work on the landscaping, and all the aspects of the development. The application was recommended for approval by your staff and unanimously recommended approval by the Planning Commission. And the deferrals have been to get a meeting with the Civic League, and again, I think we had a very, very productive meeting, and there was some misunderstanding in some quarters, thinking this was a self-storage facility, which it is not, was not, never would be. And with that, if and I know there are a number of speakers, I don't think there's 2 or 3 speakers, we wanted to go ahead and see the neighborhood, and we all wanted to go ahead and have the public hearing rather than defer this again. But if the council wishes to follow the recommendations before it, this will need to be deferred because the proffers have not been on record for 10 days. And the only proffer that was added was the restriction on the 3 uses I mentioned: no auto repair facilities, no auto repair garages, and no self-storage facility. So I'd be happy to answer any questions any of you may have.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Burdine.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a question. I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mr. Burdine. Sorry, I was looking down in my book. You said that how long before you got into this process before you actually met with the Civic League?
Well, we met with the Civic League last Tuesday. With the first deferral, at that point, we had communication with Mr. Menz and also with Mr. Jackson to get on an agenda in order
But
to.
how long did you already initiate those plans, go through all the paperwork and everything to bring before council before you met with the Civic League? Did you not do that in conjunction with the Civic League first, or did you?
No,
So I guess I'm asking, did you put the cart before the horse?
well, Mr. Rouse, the answer is yes, but I've been doing this a long, long time, and I take full responsibility for not having gone to the Civic League first. But when we went through an application a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago on Bells Road, it was my understanding, and I think and again, I'm not, no argument, but my understanding is that the suburban focus area is to protect the area on the east side of Bird Neck Road, and the west side, which is zoned industrial and has been zoned industrial for 38 years, that has no housing around it, adjacent to it, that was not a concern. My fault, totally my fault. And when I found out that there was a concern, which was not until we were here, that we said, sure, we're happy to go meet with the Civic League, and that's what we've done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kurt Clark, and after Mr. Clark will be Andrew Jackson.
Morning, Mayor.
Hey, Kirk, how are you?
I'm just pointing out where I live. Right here. 1000 Carissa Court. Name's Kurt Clark, retired Marine. I've lived in 1000 Carissa Court since 2008. Bought my home, new construction, dirt throughout, saw it, all that good stuff. My motivation here is my family, mainly my grandchildren. I have 4 kids, 2 grandkids. And this ties into planning, city council, us doing our due diligence. As a military member, I believe you rely on us to protect your freedoms. I've said some of this when we looked at the company that was being built directly across the street from Carissa Court. The same aspect, to make sure we're doing our due diligence. So with my situation in regards to my housing, I've had stormwater issues since 2009, has been addressed several times. We're looking at, when it comes to this situation and others, what are we promoting? I just heard earlier in regards to the hotel advice to citizens. And I think that's the bigger picture that I just wanted to address. That we need to have some due diligence if it's planning before it gets here to make sure that you get in with the community. If SeaTac falls under the suburban focus area and there are certain guidelines, are we following those guidelines? Because I know Mr. Mims and Mr. Jackson and some of the other city council members, the Civic League members, had to have a working group to get SeaTac on that suburban focus area for the comprehensive plan for the city of Virginia Beach. And I think it's important that we just don't, and I say this respectfully, we just don't listen to us speak and then don't take action to follow up to see, are we doing our due diligence and making sure we're taking care of the citizens of SeaTac. As I said, my concern is, are we looking out for the benefit of the citizens? Are we ensuring that we're supporting them in the best way possible? My motivation continues to be my kids. I'm going to continue to fight. It's a separate issue, but I want to highlight that because I'm still dealing with the city and planning. We got new leadership that I'm still dealing with that issue in regards to that. And I just want y'all to consider those things. So I'm not for this. I'm not for this. I was kind of back and forth. I know we made some provisions that was just addressed by the lawyer in regards to the proffer, but the bigger picture is the community. When are we going to stop? When are we going to stop continuous building of light industry, vice, residents and homes? Are we promoting that more so than the residents? Are we promoting light industry more so than we are for residents to come into that community and help it grow as a suburban focus area? And then the argument in regards to the west side versus the east side, I mean, 209 Bird Neck, 309 Bird Neck. Those homes, two-story homes, brand new, I believe they were built
Thank you.
less than 5 years ago. Thank you.
I
Thank you for your
appreciate
time.
your
Yes,
comments.
I have a question for Mr.
Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
You say your housing area in Carissa Court
Yes, sir.
deals with stormwater issues. Can you tell us what type of issues that deal with? Obviously, if you're gonna put another business center across the street from it, I would imagine that would either add to it or not, if I fully understand your stormwater issues you're having there.
Yes, sir. Well, the best way I can explain my issue is, in this cul-de-sac, try to speak loud. In this cul-de-sac, you have 5 homes. There's a drainage system in the rear of my property. All right, so this system, even though this is privately owned, I pay taxes for all of this, this system supports the stormwater drainage system for the city, which drains down to the Rudy Inlet, from my understanding. And there's a BMP system which helps filtrate any impurities. So all the stuff from neighbor's grass, you name it, comes into my backyard. And that's been a constant issue. So my point with that is, if we're looking at due diligence in regards to planning, somebody had to approve the plan. Somebody that's a subject matter expert, that's why I use the analogy of the military member that's out there. You rely on him to do the right job to protect our freedoms, whatever that may be. You might not know the fine print, same aspect in regards to planning. So that's the only way I can express that, sir.
How far is SeaTac Park away from your home on there?
Adjacent, right next door, sir. Right next
Is
door.
there, and I'm asking because you're familiar, this is your neighborhood here.
Yes, sir.
R10 right there, is that a home right there, right above the R10?
No,
I want
that is SeaTac Park.
on the west side, I should say. On the left side, yes, R10.
Yes, this is one of the new homes, and I believe there's another new home that was built within the last, I'll say 4 years, that was built on the west side.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Mr. Wood?
Just following up, ask staff this question, not a question for you, sir.
Okay.
Staff on this.
Thank
Thank you.
The speaker talked about putting residential there, but it appears from this that residential is not permitted in this area because of Navy easements plus the high noise. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilman.
John?
I have a question for staff. How many other residentially zoned properties along this corridor where the Navy has bought the underlying development rights such that the residential zoning is legal only by name and not in effect how you can use the property? Do we know how many more of these parcels there are?
We'd have to do some research for that, Councilman Moss.
I think that would be, I realize we don't have a Beachboro councilman yet, or person, I should say more appropriately, woman or man, but I do think that's something they probably would want to know, because that's probably some maybe more comprehensive cleanup that we might be able to do when we see what that is, or engage the community so they know what it is, so we can, have, like the gentleman suggested, a forward-leaning discussion rather than sometimes a reactive one, finding no fault. But I just think if we have a comprehensive look at that, we'll have a better idea of what the art of the possible is that works with the community.
Yes, sir.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Andrew Jackson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager. Every meeting we have here, we do two things first. We give honor to God. We ask Him for advice. Second thing we do, we pledge allegiance to a flag. My question is, do we really understand what we're saying, and are we following those things when we make decisions? And I say that because looking at this particular item. I looked at Title VI, we know Title VI, environmental equality. And I remember when we sat for 2 years, just for this community to be part of the suburban focus area, for a protective arm to look at manipulation of the culture, the flavor of that community. And ever since then, we've looked at modifications to all the things that were listed in the suburban focus when we sat down and had those meetings. We looked at the influx of storage areas here, storage areas there. So I remember I don't know how many people have been here for a while. I've been here for a little while. Came here in 1956, retired here in 1975. Served in the Navy from end of Korea to the end of Vietnam. And I remember a Vietnamese officer asked me a question because one of my friends had just died in the service of his country, supporting what that flag stands for. And he asked me, he said, "Jackson, why are you here? You're not free at home." I remember that. When I come before this council and I want to talk about equality issues, the influx of things within this particular neighborhood, and I remember Burton Station, I remember what Centerville used to be, I remember Gracetown, I remember all of those things that are gone, and I see the pattern. I will say one thing to you. At least Mr. Baudon and the applicant did take the time to sit down with us. And we may not agree with everything, but they tried to put a provision in there so something will remain constant. So I go along with that. But I'm asking this council, and I'm saying that this council and city manager ought to address the planning department. It's written there that when things like this are coming into CTAC, there should be a discussion. It's not on the attorney's part to have a discussion. The discussion but should have been in planning. It wasn't. And if we don't keep constant vigilance here, due diligence, looking at this, we miss it. So I'm going to end with this and say, do we believe what we say when we pray? Do we believe what we say that flag stands for? And I would ask you to say to yourself, ask yourselves, when will this end? When will it end? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Mr. Bordon, would you like to?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I want to thank both Mr. Clark and Mr. Jackson for coming down tonight, and I want to reiterate, I've been doing this a long time, and I should have gone to the Civic League, but I honestly, because this property has been zoned this way for so long, and it wasn't adjacent to anybody's homes, but that, I'll take the blame for that, for not going forward. I would say this, the Kurtz family would very much have loved to have been able to develop this 4.38 acres at R10 residential, and would very much like to do that today, but that's just not possible, and we all know that. We all know that that's why. They've owned this property and paid taxes on this property for 55 years, and it's been zoned essentially unconditional I-1, except for that front portion, since 1981. Now, I would also suggest that when the city did that as a part of its comprehensive plan, I suspect that Mr. Scott, who would have been in the middle of all of that, determined that he thought it was best not to have all that property zoned unconditional I-1, and he left that frontage along the street, R10, knowing it couldn't be developed R10, so that just this type of process would take place. So you wouldn't have industrial uses coming in there that, no one had any ability to have any input in. So I think there was probably a good reason for it, and I don't argue that. At this point, though, we have a use that will provide job opportunities for small businesses to grow, that is compatible with with Oceana's operation. And most importantly, we know what the property is going to be, and it's no longer unconditional I-1. And I hope that the council will, I request the council would defer the matter until the first meeting in April, when you can actually vote on the proffers that we have submitted since Tuesday's meeting with the Civic League that include those restrictions that they asked us to include, that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you.
And Eddie.
Rosemary?
Thank you. Would you please work with this gentleman in the meantime?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
and I meant, thank you.
He was so eloquent and
And let me make it very clear, I meant to say this. This piece of property drains entirely to the west, nothing drains onto the east side of Bird Neck Road. The BMP is at the back of the property, and the outfall is over here into the tributary of the Lynn Haven River. It's completely, totally separate drainage shed. It doesn't, nothing will come off of this property and drain onto Mr. Clark's property or that side of Bird Neck Road at all.
Clark was so
I've been-
eloquent and so nice to come down here and express his concerns. If you would so kindly
Absolutely, and
meet up with
Mr.
him,
Clark and I have
we
spoken.
would really appreciate it.
And we appreciate all the community's efforts and concerns. Thank you.
So I'd like to move to.
I'm sorry, I don't control that.
No, I
No.
just want him to meet with you until we come back.
We're-
Yes or no?
No,
Thank you. No, thank you.
no, we're
good.
good, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
So we're
it.
supposed to,
That wasn't my point.
Okay.
That's all I wanted.
when is
Okay.
the next meeting? April
April the 2nd.
2nd?
April
I'd like to
2nd.
move that we defer till April 2nd.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
We can defer it, and I'm happy to defer. I mean, obviously, because the profits have to be in. I just think the concern with the residents there is Mr. Burdon has already taken accountability for is when we're planning. I'm sure the planning department has done their job, but we have to make sure we engage the public when we go to bring developments within certain communities. And as well, I mean, SeaTech is a historic community. It's my home community where I grew up at. And I don't want to see the characteristic of the neighborhood change. I mean, there's a lot of the new Owls Creek GPS system will be coming online pretty soon. There's storage after storage unit. You have another business center. Kids, we walk up and down, used to walk up and down that Burnett Road as well. There's an animal shelter there. I know they walk a lot of the animals up and down that road as well. And to put another business center in there, you know, I have some apprehension about that, but if the Civic League and the people are for it, then I'll support it.
And I think with the new planning director, we have a new opportunity, you know, going forward. And I think going forward, you know, civic engagement, preemptive civic engagement, you know, is really a good idea, because this way we get early onset communication going, the concerns addressed and early on. So, you know, I hope you'll take that into consideration.
Yes, sir. Staff does provide information. We will do a better job of making sure it's clear and maybe a little bit more directed to the communities that are impacted. So we'll do a better job of reviewing that.
That would be great. Thank you. Mr.
I just had a question, just so the back portion is zoned I-1 unconditional, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So that portion could be developed with this, just not the front portion?
No, sir. The property doesn't have any frontage at this time, which is why, as Mr. Burdon noted, there's a necessity to do a rezoning in order to have the proper frontage to do development. So it allows for the opportunity for conditional zoning to provide a chance to review the development and through the conditional zoning process.
Well, that's a conversation I think we need to have separately, because
So
I
they couldn't
think,
just do a driveway into the section with the,
No, in order to do a development of that type, they would have to have frontage on legal road frontage with the property. So.
Mr. Moss.
Well, probably if we had a discussion, that's probably one we should have in executive session, because it deals with what constitutes inverse condemnation, all these other issues if we didn't allow use of the property. I think if we're going to go there, I think that's where that should take place.
Okay, good point. Okay, the vote is open.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you have deferred the application until April 2nd.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the conversation. All righty, and now on to K3, CNC Development Corporation Incorporated, ETC PAC LLC for special exemption for alternative compliance to the Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code, RA lot width, lot area, and parking setbacks at 2508 Pacific Avenue and 302 26th Street, District 6, Beach.
So the only card I have is for Mr. Burdon, the applicant. Council asked to pull
Okay,
this.
did we want to, yeah. Should we hear Mr. Burdon?
If we're going to vote, I think
Yep.
we should.
Eddie Burdon?
Yep, we just had some questions on
Plus,
that.
Eddie's got to be allowed to do a billing, he's still here.
I was having a nice conversation with Mr. Clark, because Mr. Clark's point, and he explained to me, he wasn't asserting that we drained on him. It's the process of how the city handles, the drainage and maintenance of it and those issues, which we'll continue that conversation. But so I wanted to, that's why we were talking. I wasn't sure that you all understood that he wasn't talking about possible drainage impacts of this development. That was all I was making clear, that we couldn't have an impact on him drainage-wise, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have issues. Okay, so, all right, sorry to go backwards. All right, I do actually have handouts on this. I think packages that you all get, they're a little bit nicer anyway. With me for the record, Eddie Burdon, Jimmy's attorney representing the applicant. Chris Edel and his brother John are here. They've been well-respected developers, infill developers in Virginia Beach for quite some time, the North End and Old Beach. Also, Chris Caton and his brother Bob are here. This property has been in the Caton family since, I think, 1961. Some of you all may have known their late father, Edward T. Ned Caton, who was in the General Assembly and certainly a very, very well-respected barrister in the city of Virginia Beach for many, many years. They have come together with this application for alternative compliance on this piece of property under our form-based code. This application's been through a tremendous amount of review by your planning staff and by the RAC. I think it is one of the neatest and nicest pieces of development proposed for the west side of Pacific Avenue, which is primarily commercial, but under our desires in the form-based code is to create a mix of uses and uses that promote modes of transportation other than the automobile, and that are built to create a pedestrian-oriented appearance and to create pedestrian activity by improving the street frontage, which this does. This application, my client will be spending just under $100,000 in infrastructure improvements along Pacific Avenue and 26th Street. The improvements will include creating 3 new metered parking spaces that the city will make some money off of on 26th Street. Now, I understand that in the briefing that you all received a few weeks back, there was some inaccurate information, unfortunately, that was provided mistakenly, certainly not intentionally, about the units and the parking. There are 6 units on the property that are proposed. The ones that face Pacific Avenue have 1,900 square feet of living area in them. They each have a 2-car garage underneath on the first floor for a total of 10 spaces. But the ordinance, and this goes back to our ordinance forever, back to 1973, those parking places don't count, okay? We have 5 parking spaces in addition to those 10 for these 6 units, plus we're creating 3 additional parking spaces on 26th Street that don't exist today, and we're making a tremendous amount of improvement to the frontage on Pacific Avenue, 26th Street, and 26th Street. We're also dedicating 2 feet of right-of-way on the alley to the city of Virginia Beach as well. The alternative compliance that we're seeking, this is a condominium. It's not going to be subdivided, and the property has, after the dedication on 25th and a half Street, has it's like 9,060 square feet. Row houses require, even though they're not subdivided, require 1,500 square feet of land per unit. We have more than that, but the unit on the back that's not technically a row house, even though it looks like all the other units, still a little bit smaller, at 1,425 square feet, that unit requires 3,000 square feet of land. Go figure. So that's one of the alternative compliance aspects of it. The alley doesn't count as road frontage under the form-based code. However, alleys in the rest of Old Beach, as well as at the north end, they do. I mean, we have units up front on the alleys throughout Old Beach and the north end as well, and have for many years. But in this case, in the form-based code area, the alley doesn't count as a road, so that's one of the other alternative compliance aspects to this. The development, high-end, beautiful architecture. I think it'll be such a positive addition to Atlantic Avenue. RAC's very supportive of it. Planning Commission unanimously, they loved it, they thought it looked great. There's no objection from the neighbors. We've talked to the neighbors. They're very happy with what's being proposed. They didn't want to see, an additional commercial. It's a good buffer from for the neighborhood behind, from the traffic up and down at Pacific, and that's foot traffic as well as vehicular traffic. We are making the improvements that you see. There's also going to be sufficient area in the median. That's not something that my client will be doing, but that the median will be wide enough for people to stand in the median, whereas now that's not the case. That's one of the things the city's going to be doing along Pacific Avenue over the course of time. But if you read the alternative compliance application and what we're seeking to do, I think this meets that square on the nose. The reason that form-based code, and I heard Councilman Moss's comments at when y'all were briefed informally, when some information on the size and the parking were not well communicated. These are lots, and they're all throughout the oceanfront that were platted between 80 and 120 years ago. All right, they're suburban. I don't know what but there are lots of small lots, lots of all different sizes, but not large. And as a consequence, it's very difficult. And I've lived with suburban zoning my whole career, but the form-based code, because we're trying to create something new, different, unique, not the same old, it actually encourages people to try to meet the goals of the form-based code. And the fact that it doesn't have a lot of hard and fast rules, that's actually to the benefit of getting what you're trying to get. And everybody gets to, again, see it, smell it, taste it, and decide whether they like it or not. One of the things in the form-based code says that you can't have parking within 25 feet of the road, but I would suggest that the purpose for that is so that you don't have cars parked. Well, the fact that the garage underneath it, which you cannot see, has the car in it, and it's 25 feet, within 25 feet of Pacific Avenue, the purpose for the restriction is served, and to say, well, where are you going to put the car otherwise, other than out in the back, which doesn't make sense to have parking lined up in the back. So form-based code is there for a reason, and that is because we want to try to look at what it's going to look like, what we're going to get. And I certainly understand if we only had 5 parking spaces, I would say that's not adequate. But that's really not the case. Again, we're dealing with spaces that, by the condominium regime, have to remain available for parking and can't be closed in and used as living space. It's clearly for parking, and the amount of parking provided at 15 spaces on site, plus we're adding 3 for the public's use, metered spaces at my client's cost, which will actually generate additional revenue to the city over and above revenue generated from the development itself, from the additional value added to the property. You happy to answer
Any questions, John?
You said that the condominium agreement wouldn't permit people to convert the garage
Correct.
space. Does it also preclude people from having more than 2 cars, such that they can't make it into a closet and they're still looking for street parking? I mean, I've been in other condo.
I know you're being,
I'm not being, I know some
Well, no,
places
I
where
can't-
they actually restrict the number of cars you can have And that's, I've been up in Northern Virginia where they only allow you to have 2 cars, one has to be in your garage and one has to be
Oh,
on
you
your
mean,
driveway.
you can only have 2 on the site?
Right.
Oh, sure, yeah, we can certainly do that. We can't restrict how many cars somebody
know,
could own.
but
I
back-
misunderstood you.
No, what I meant was then they park
Sure.
on, that's what I was referring to.
Oh, I don't think that, that my clients would have any aversion to doing so.
I was just asking because you made that point. I wanted to know what it meant. That's all I had for him. I have some questions for staff, but I'll defer to other people.
Good, Jess?
I had a question. In the application and in your comments, you said this is going to promote that there'll be a mix of uses.
Well, yes,
Can
you've
you
got-
clarify?
Yeah, sure, we've got, directly to our south is a commercial shopping center.
No, I thought you were talking about the
Oh,
property
no, not on site,
itself.
no, it's a mix of uses along the west side of Pacific
Understood.
Avenue, which is primarily commercial.
Sure.
And hotels.
Okay, that was what I wanted clarification. And then my
And
other question was, what is the size of the garage?
The size of the garage is, I'm sorry, it's a 2-car garage, and I believe it's 19 or 20 feet deep by 20, the units are 23.4 feet wide. It's the entire width of the unit, so it's basically about 22 feet by 20 or 19.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Rosemary?
It's a big improvement from what they started out with.
Oh, they really have. They've done the architect did a magnificent job, in my
And
opinion.
the 3-meter spaces, I mean, anybody can park there. That's not just going to be for here.
No, that's correct. They're public spaces that will produce
Yeah.
revenue to the city, but you've got each unit on Pacific Avenue has 2 spaces, and then you've got 5 additional spaces.
I mean, I know this parcel. I mean, I drive past it every day.
Yeah, we all,
You know, it's really small. It just seems to be a lot to put on that one parcel. I feel like, I wish that the back unit wasn't on there. It would allow some more parking. I mean, how detrimental would it be if it didn't have that last,
the feasibility of,
that 6th unit? I mean, it's just,
Ms. Wilson,
it's a lot on that.
well,
on that one.
the way, the
I mean,
one,
how big is the parcel?
it's after the dedication, it's 9,060 square feet. 1,500, a little over 1,500 square feet per unit, which is what row houses require.
I mean, I'm really trying to like it, but I'm struggling with
Well,
liking it.
again, one way to characterize it, just off the cuff, is the amount of public improvements to the right-of-ways that the applicant is doing, at close to $100,000. We certainly can't afford to do that and lose lose a unit. That's the best way I know how to put it. And there are other potential uses for the property under form-based code as well. And I've
So it's 9,000 square feet.
9,060 after the dedication. 9,060 after the dedication.
Okay, Ms. Henley?
Are these units to be individually sold?
They will be condoed and they will be offered for sale. Yes, ma'am.
Offered for sale?
Yeah.
I don't know if these were
I
being
can't-
rented units or if they're going to be sold to be individual townhouses.
It's under a condominium regime. Okay, in other words, they're not subdivided, it's a condominium, so you have control over what appearance and maintenance and all that stuff. It'll be a condominium. But yeah, they will be able to be sold, correct.
John?
One last question about the condominium rules. Do the condominium rules preclude people registering their unit as a short-term rental or otherwise renting out? What are the rental provisions that?
Yeah, no, I do believe that there will not be a preclusion in this location to rentals. I don't think that would be even something that, I don't want to get, I've stayed out of that whole debate, but I don't see this as being a place that, because you could put stuff there as for rent anyway, so we're not.
You answered my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm not going to preclude that it
Okay.
could be a rental.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, we ready for the vote? Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Okay.
Motion.
Anybody? Motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion to vote.
What's the motion?
Okay, we have a motion to approve?
No.
Okay.
Does someone make that motion and second it?
Motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve and a second. We have a motion to approve and a second.
Mr. Jones, may I have your vote? Thank you. By a vote of 5 to 4, you have approved the application.
Okay, next, moving on, Virginia Beach Development Authority for a conditional change of zoning from conditional B2 community business, condition one, okay, Virginia Beach Development Authority for conditional change of zoning for conditional B2 community business to conditional I1 light industrial and conditional I1 light industrial to conditional B2 community business, the corner corporate landing and general booth, District 7, Princess Anne. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Dyer,
No.
Vice Mayor Wood. Whoops,
I don't have a card for him. I'm sorry, I don't have a card for you.
I filled one out.
You did? I don't have.
Absolutely did.
Okay. It's no problem.
Lady that was out there.
Paige, she's gone. It's fine.
So do we not have,
Okay,
Just introduce
Just introduce yourself.
yeah.
Randy Royal, business address, Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm representing the Development Authority on this 4525 Main Street, Virginia Beach. Representing the Development Authority on this rezoning. What we're looking to do are to take some of the B2 zoning up front in corporate landing and rezone it to I1, making it more conducive to the data centers that are following the subsea cables and more office buildings in there. There's too much retail in the corridor now to ever get retail along this frontage. We're keeping a small piece, as you can see, the light blue at the corner of corporate landing and general booth there. That's meant to be neighborhood, just stuff to serve the park, nothing big, not a real shopping center in there. So we're maintaining the proffers that we currently have on corporate landing. We're just shifting around the zoning because we've got I1 on everything else in there. There is no tie-in to the neighborhood streets. That was a concern of the people to the southwest there. There's no intention to do that. There's a 75-foot buffer required. There's no intention to take the trees out. That's a wooded buffer there. And the people on Lewisham Way, which is that loop closest to General Booth there, have actually got an extra 80 feet at the back of their yard, so they're about 155 feet. We see it as somewhat of a down zoning, and I'll speak to that in a minute from the noise standpoint of I1 data centers versus B2 retail. Data centers are generally quiet uses. There was concerns about storm drainage. I heard that at the Planning Commission from the neighbors, and by the way, there wasn't a definitive civic league there, so we didn't reach out beforehand, but the folks that showed up at the Planning Commission, we reached out and had another meeting with them, and I went over their issues, which storm drainage seemed to be a big one, but this project is not going to cause any impact on their storm drainage. We will have to hold back peak flows. We've done an elaborate drainage study. We're not going to impact it. I did offer to help them with contacting whoever they need to at the city, but I haven't heard back from them. So noise-wise, I think there's a bit of a misperception that data centers are very loud. The facility on Greenwich Road, everybody seems to have heard about. That's a Bitcoin facility, which is still basically a data center. It was a retrofitted building. It was not built from scratch. If you go out to corporate landing now, the data center that exists is Telsius, Telefonica, right beside the New Realm, formerly Green Flash. Very, very, very quiet. When these things are built from scratch, you have all of the stuff encompassed inside. The one on Greenwich Road has got louvers, fans. It's very close to the neighbors. It is very loud. It's a problem, but that is not your standard data center. From a noise standpoint, I had one of our guys do a noise study to put a little perspective on the decibels, which this is in the 70 to 75 decibel area, ACUS overlay. City ordinance section 2369 says that standard daytime noise should be no higher than 65. It is with the jets, but that they were there first. And no higher than 55 decibels at night. The noisiest thing about the data centers are the backup generators. They cannot go down. They have to operate all the time. They've got dual feeds for power, but if everything gets knocked out, they've got to stay online. So they have backup generators. They typically test those once a month or maybe once a quarter. They crank them up to make sure they work. They have enclosures, they have mufflers, they have silencers. The closest we could be to a property, if the generator was right on the edge, would be 75 feet, because we got a 75-foot buffer. That's not typically where it would be, but if it was 75 feet, then we're talking about 58 decibels. With a wall, which is typically what we require in the park around these utility yards, you have another 5 decibel lowering. So it's 53 decibels or possibly lower, not even accounting for the trees that we have at the back, which could be another 5 decibels lowering. Mechanical equipment is similar, your HVAC type stuff. It's about 47 decibels at the wall. Conversely, with retail, you've got higher with trash pickup and compacting, could be in the 67 to 72 range, 75 feet away, which you still have the buffer in there, but you wouldn't have walls around it like you do with the data centers. So you'd have a higher use there. The noise levels that we would have at the data center, which would be on a temporary basis when they're trying them out to make sure they work, unless there's a power outage where they would be running, but we would be at the 53 decibels or lower, which is below the city code, and it's for brief time. Again, I'm not sure what the speaker is here to talk to us about tonight. I'll stand by for questions on that. Staff recommended approval, Planning Commission recommended approval, and I'll be happy to answer questions after the speaker speaks, or now, if you have any. No? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And let me apologize, I did have a card for him.
No,
Sorry. Diana Torres.
welcome.
I'm opposing to get anything really built on there. Let me point out my house, or in the general area where my house would be. It's probably like right here, I want to say. All right, that's my house. You already know that, well, I know that it's loud there. We already have pretty much 70% of just sound there of how loud it is. Jets are flying by. General Booth is a very busy road, so we have a lot of noise coming in our backyard. It's a lovely home. I love urbanness of Virginia. The only thing is the noise. I don't think I would agree with having a data center there. Maybe he could put the data center up by the river or little lake thing that we have up there. It's already industrialized. And I think that would be a great place just to put, you know, a commercial building. There's already commercial buildings there. Yes, I am all for nature, and I think that that's a lot of property that you could do a lot with. And I was thinking that it would be nice to maybe do a little park or something, similar to Botanical Gardens. It's 30 acres less than what Botanical Gardens actually is. I did the measurements and everything. It would be nice. If you think about it, it's only 10 minutes from the beach, and we get a lot of tourists in that area. And nobody wants to drive 30 minutes to go to Botanical Gardens when you could just go 15 minutes down the road and go to Virginia Gardens. Again, I was born and raised here, so a lot of development has happened over the years, and it's kind of sad when I, you know, look around and I see all these commercial buildings and just things growing. I'm here because it is urban. That's why I'm here. I love the fact that I can walk outside and it feels like home. If I wanted a big city, I would be in New York or Chicago or something like that. But I'm here in Virginia Beach because of the urbanness of it. I like that southern hospitality feel. I mean, we are the South, you know, we're the beginning of it. So why not bring that back? I want us all to eat, and I think that the city could make money off of this. Maybe not as much as big industrial buildings, but I do feel like it would bring more people out of their homes and outdoors instead of stuck in office buildings. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers, Mr.
That's all the speakers?
Let me ask Randy a question real quick.
Yes.
So we don't have a plan as to where a building would go or anything at this time. Is that correct?
Well, quite frankly, where she's talking about is still the B2 stuff up front. We don't have a plan, but the intention would be to do like we're doing now, push the buildings up, parking in the back. But that commercial area up there is not intended to be big box or small boutique-y type, food places, but nothing big. The data centers would be well away from her lot, other side of General Booth, and a couple 100 feet beyond where that retail is.
Thank you.
Okay. John,
As the people on Northampton Boulevard can attest to, vegetation makes a big difference about noise. Unfortunately, they lost theirs, and that's the issue we gotta work on. But 75 feet of vegetation, that's a lot of leaves, that's a lot of energy diffusion. You probably would do better than even 5 dB, I suspect. That's what the literature would show. That's a lot of energy absorption in 75 feet of dense vegetation. So I think you're probably conservative on the noise reduction, but that's a very, very good buffer for the operation.
okay. Jess?
I have a question. You brought up Greenwich and the Bitcoin facility, which is in my district. The light industrial rezoning, that's not going to prohibit them from coming into this development, though. There's no proffer or anything saying that if, not that specific provider, but if another applicant wanted to have a Bitcoin mining facility or another cryptocurrency, they could theoretically come here without a conditional use.
Correct.
Maybe I'm asking the wrong person.
No, well, yeah, probably should ask Kevin, but.
Yeah. So I think that this is the place for these types of things. I'm not opposed to this specific issue. My concern is that when we talk about quality of life, that specific one that we have in Greenwich is an enormous challenge for the city right now. And I understand that that was a retrofitted building and it's not the same thing as new construction, and we do have a different situation here, but it does make a big thing. And I think it bothers me when we compare this use to like retail or another commercial use, because that they do generate sound, but it's not constant sound. And so I'm going to vote in support of this, but I would feel better if there was, and maybe this is something staff does, that there's a level of scrutiny on what comes into this area. It would make me more comfortable, but it is, data centers may not generate a lot of noise, but they generate constant noise. And that concerns me.
Councilman, absolutely understanding the difficulties that we've dealt with out there. The communication to the Development Authority about that concern and what we deal with, what we have is the right for the Development Authority to determine the sale of the property.
Sure.
And so that's when we get that another bite at the apple for those scenarios to make sure that we don't run into that again.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay.
Somebody wanted to make.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's all right. Well, at any rate, this property, of course, was farmland, and it was purchased for an industrial park and has been zoned for an industrial park now for 30 years. It was just a little slow to develop. But the development grew up around this property after it had been zoned for industrial. But I know that there are pretty strict standards for that development park, which the the neighbors who were there at the time made certain that these standards were in place. And I'm assuming they're still in place, and that's what will be followed with anything that's built there, because they were very, very specific when those were devised. So as long as they're all still in place, and that's what's going to be used as the standard for any development there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
And any other discussion? Vote is open.
By a vote of 9-0, you approve the application.
Okay, thank you. All right, appointments, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I nominate the following individuals for appointments. For Bikeways and Trails Committee, D. Oliver representing the Planning Commission. For Clean Community Commission, Scott Kellum, Walter Camp, Justin Burns, and Karen Short. For the Green Ribbon Committee, David Weiner representing the Planning Commission. And for the Stormwater Appeals Board, Bobby Tahan representing the Planning Commission.
Are there any others? Okay, vote is open.
Thank you. By a vote of 9-0, you have appointed those as read by the vice mayor.
Okay, is there any unfinished business?
I'd just like
John?
to reflect, I know some people might have noted that Mrs. Kane left early today, was her birthday, and her husband was taking her out for dinner, and I know everyone would understand that, but I just want the public that's viewing.
First, her husband's birthday.
Oh, it's her husband's birthday, I got it reversed.
She's taking him out.
Oh, all right, I like that part. Anyway, she had a good reason to be leaving, I know we all would
Shannon,
understand.
August 10th, my goodness. Okay, new business. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Watch people leaving if they don't know why.